Okay, well, thank you for joining us and welcome to tonight's presentation, providing an overview of South Central Trap setback proposals up for consideration by the Board of Game next month. My name is Mandy Magura, and I'll be moderating tonight's presentations. I'm with the Alaska Wildlife Alliance, also known as AWA, and we're a grassroots nonprofit founded by Alaskans in 1978 to protect Alaska's wildlife for its intrinsic value and for the benefit of present and future generations of Alaskans. And we do this through citizen mobilization, advocacy, education. So tonight's presentation is part of our process on educating folks about these proposals and the Board of Game process. And I just want to let everybody know that this meeting is being recorded and it will be shared on AWA's website, Facebook page, and YouTube. So if there is information or links that you didn't get a chance to grab, the video recording will be available, so don't fret. And let's admit, there we go. There are two goals of tonight's presentation. So the first is to give the authors of several South Central proposals the chance to describe their proposals for trap setbacks. And the second goal is to demonstrate how to engage with the Board of Game process and submit your comments on various proposals. And so our speakers tonight are going to be Dr. John Morton with Alaska Wildlife Alliance, Lorraine Temple with Cooper Landing Safe Trails Committee, and then Kathy Sarnes, who's a resident of Homer. And all of them are involved in submitting some proposals on this topic. And give me just a second to admit some more people. Okay. Sorry, hold on. It's still showing, trying to admit people here and make sure everybody gets a chance to get in.
I can help too.
Great, thank you. I just keep getting the pop-ups, so I want to make sure folks get in.
Yeah, I'll keep looking.
Great, I appreciate it. So just before we get started, I want to go over a little bit of the meeting format and then just some meeting etiquette tonight. And so first of all, I'm going to ask that everybody please turn off their cameras and to mute their microphones. And we're going to do this to help avoid any potential for Zoom bombing. And it's been a while since I've had to say that, but that's when there's unexpected images in the video or unexpected audio. And it also helps us hear the speakers a little bit better as well. So I'm going to start out because we are talking about proposals submitted to the Board of Game. Just giving a bit of information, a very brief overview of what the Board of Game is, and then we'll transition into our speakers. And each speaker is going to have about 8 to 10 minutes to talk about their proposal for the trap setbacks on the Kenai Peninsula that they submitted. And then we will have up to 5 minutes for questions. And we're going to do the questions through the chat feature. And so there should be a little somewhere on your screen when the menu pops up, there's a little chat button. And so we're going to type in our questions into that chat button, that chat option. And then after the end of each presentation, I will go through and I will read the questions so the speaker can answer them. And I will be moderating for both time, but also as well as appropriateness of the questions. And I bring that up because we're not going to have a discussion tonight about trapping in general. So we want to make sure that our questions are really specific to the proposal or proposals being discussed. And the purpose is to help improve the understanding of the proposal. And because this can be a sensitive topic, if there are any profane or argumentative language, we're not going to tolerate those and you may be removed. So please, let's keep this polite and informational. And we're just really looking for a solutions-oriented conversation. And then at the end, I will go through and I will give a quick review on how you can submit comments to the Board of Game on any of these proposals or the other ones that they have going up. So let's just jump in pretty quickly about what is the Board of Game. Well, it is a 7-member board of just everyday Alaskans who are appointed by the governor to make decisions for hunting season lengths, methods and means, and wildlife population objectives. And each member serves a 3-year term. And while the Alaska Department of Fish and Game can give advice to the Board of Game, that's pretty much what it is. It's just advice. It's actually these board members that are responsible for making all of the decisions for the state's hunting and trapping regulations. And so you'll notice if you want to learn more about the current board members, I've put a link in the chat, and then I'll also show you later on how to find their bios. But it's very important to understand that none of the Board of Game members are wildlife biologists or wildlife management professionals. Like I said, they are everyday Alaskans. And the current Board of Game membership is comprised of individuals primarily representing hunting and trapping interests. So the Board of Game does not have designated user seats. So there's not a seat currently for a non-consumptive user of wildlife. So there's no wildlife viewing or wildlife watchers represented on the Board of Game. Let's see. Oh, it's not changing here. Here we go. So every year, the Board of Game opens up 2 regions around the state for public proposals to be submitted and discussed. And anyone can submit a proposal for changing wildlife regulations. So in March of this year, the board's going to be discussing and voting on proposals for the South Central region. And after March, the board's not going to consider proposals for the South Central region for another 3 years. So this is really the only opportunity we have for 3 years to get our voices heard on these particular topics. I also just want to let folks know that, you know, AWA, we do work to make sure the Board of Game regulations consider the needs of wildlife and maintain ecosystem health, and that the Board of Game balances the request of all Alaskans. And so because the process can be complicated, we have worked with some partners to create a whiteboard video about the Board of Game process. So here's just a screenshot from that. I have put the link up top so you can come back to it later, but it is accessible on our website and also YouTube channel. And it's about just under 3 minutes. So it just kind of helps you know how you can get involved in this public process of making decisions. And then we also have, there's another one, a map the trap section on our website. So if you go to our website, akwildlife.org, that's just the main page. And if you look at the menu bar, and I don't know if you can see my mouse, but I've circled in yellow, we have the Safe Trails link, and it'll take you to this page, which is Map the Trap. And basically, we created this because we realized that there was not a consolidated place for people to report encounters with traps in public places, such as multi-use trails, parking lots, and along public areas on beaches, things like that. So we started this Map the Trap, and I'm just going to show you. If you scroll down, you'll see it's just a very simple system where you can put in information of when and where you saw a trap, what type of trap it was, if there's animals in the trap, and you can submit that information to us. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll see we have a report from some information that was submitted for 2020 and 2021. So this is just, if you want some more information, it's just a resource for you. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we are going to transition to our first speaker, Dr. John Morton. So John, if you want to share your screen. John is the Vice President of Alaska Wildlife Alliance. He lives in Soldotna and has decades of experience in wildlife management. He served as the supervisory biologist for the Kenai National Wildlife Refuge and was heavily involved in establishing wildlife crossings on the highway improvements running through the refuge. So he's here today to talk about AWA's proposal number 145, which requests for hunting and trapping setbacks from new wildlife crossings on the Cooper Landing bypass.
Mandy, do you see that?
I do. You're good to go.
Oh, yay. Okay, so it's the age-old question, why do wildlife cross the road? And of course, they're trying to get to the other side of the road. And proposal 145 is to ensure that not only do they get across the road, but they get across the road safely. That's what this is all about. And it asks for a 1/4 mile, no trapping, no hunting buffer around 5 structures on the milepost 45 to 60 section of the Sterling Highway. That's from Jim's Landing to Quartz Creek on the other side of Cooper Landing. And these 5 structures are $10 million worth of taxpayers' money, and they're intended to help animals cross the road. And right now we have no protection from trapping and hunting along these structures. So it seems like kind of obvious that maybe we should do something. Need to flip this. So keeping in mind that I'm a biologist, I look at this sort of at the landscape scale. If you kind of look at the 60-mile distance from Quartz Creek, actually from Turn Lake all the way over to the mouth of the Kenai, only about 20% of that land is still available for north-south movement for wildlife across the landscape. And that's because of the natural breaks of the Ski-Lac Lake and Kenai Lake, but then also the really urbanizing block that's created by the Sterling, Soldotna, Kenai section. And basically animals are having a hard time moving across the landscape. And then to compound that, you have the Sterling Highway itself, which has this massive traffic right now of over 1.2 million vehicles a year. And that translates to 2.3 vehicles every minute. And that's an average, of course, for the year. And of course, in the summer, it's much, much higher traffic loads than that. And in the winter, it's a little bit sparser, but you can imagine that animals are having a hard time crossing the road. And of course, there's a lot of vehicle collisions. And this is what the Alaska Department of Transportation is primarily interested in, is reducing moose vehicle collisions. And the blue line down there is moose vehicle collisions. The red line is the general registration harvest for moose on the Kenai. And you'll see for the last 10 years, they're the same. In other words, we're killing as many moose with cars as we are with guns. It's a really sad statement, but it's the truth. It's about 250 moose a year. But the really big deal here is that the moose that are being killed in the general registration hunt are obviously mostly bulls, whereas the ones that are being killed by vehicles are 90% of them are actually cows and calves. And that's the very sad thing about it, is that we're killing our reproductive cohort with our vehicles. And the vehicles themselves, of course, vehicle collisions are very expensive. This report to Congress by the Federal Highways Administration, and this is way back in 2008 before all this inflation, but back then it was about $31,000 a collision that it cost consumers, and that's of course not counting human mortality. And right now with the last time I looked at the Alaska Moose Federation, it was actually more like $36,000 or $37,000 per collision. So it's a lot of money. And if you do the math on that, whether you use 31,000 or 36,000 and multiply it by 250, you end up with $7 to $9 million a year being spent by people living on the Kenai on moose collisions. That's a lot of money. The other big thing from a wildlife perspective is that vehicle collision or vehicle traffic, if it gets dense enough like it does in Anchorage, can actually create, different populations. And this is a nice study that was done by ADF&G, UAF, and a USGS geneticist. And they showed basically that the traffic on the Glen Highway is creating 2 genetically distinct populations on the Kenai, or in the Anchorage Bowl area, which is, pretty telling. So here's the Sterling Highway milepost 45 to 60 map. And if you're over on the far left, let's see if my cursor moves over here, is Jim's Landing. Over on the far right, of course, is Cooper Landing. And on the very far right is Quartz Creek. Just to give you some perspective, here's the Russian River Campground. So these 5 circles show the underpasses that are going in. Actually, one is an overpass. The 2 in red on the left here, they're on the refuge side. One is at Fuller, one's in between Fuller and Sportsman's Landing. You have this one here. This is going to be an overpass, and it's the first overpass in Alaska. So that's kind of exciting. And then over on the far right here, you've got 2 more underpasses, and the 3 yellow ones are on Forest Service lands. And so they're in Game Management Unit 7, and the 2 red ones are in Game Management Unit 15, specifically 15A. Two of the underpasses, the two on the refuge side, are already done. So you can see the Fuller Creek one, and then the one on the right is the one in between Fuller Creek and Sportsman Landing. And of course, the big question is, do they work? And the nice thing is that there was the project, that goes from Sterling to Jim's Landing, which is milepost 58 to 79, that goes through the Kenai Refuge. That was finished up in 2019, and we've got underpasses there, 6 of them, and data have been collected. We already know that since the completion of the culverts, we have a 50% reduction in moose vehicle collisions in the last 2 or 3 years. The really good story, though, is that lots of other animals are using the underpasses. And here in this picture here, you see a black bear up on the top and lynx down on the bottom. But, there's a whole host of species using it: brown and black bears, coyotes, porcupines, river otters, ermine, mink, snowshoe hares, ducks, even sandhill cranes are walking through. So it's a very cool thing. But that's also why we really don't want hunting and trapping around these structures, because it's we're trying to make this a nice place for wildlife to get across. On the refuge side, it's not an issue because there are already regulations in place that effectively protect the wildlife underpasses. Basically, you can't trap or snare within a mile of roads. So that buffer area is shown in purple there on the map. And so for all practical purposes, the refuges, underpasses are actually protected for the most part. There is one exception, but it's minor. And so this is what we're proposing. They're essentially the same. One is for hunting and the other one is trapping, and they're specific regulatory codes 92.510. And basically we're asking that we amend these 2 areas close to hunting and trapping to include all lands within a 1/4 mile of the 5 wildlife structures, and basically have no hunting and no trapping within those 1/4 mile buffers. And so I'll leave it there. Basically, I'm asking people to support proposal 145. It seems like a no-brainer that we've invested $10.5 million into these structures, and then to not, fully protect them doesn't seem to make any sense to me. But I'll leave it there. Mandy?
Thank you, John. Okay, we have some questions. One you answered, but I do want to just go ahead and read it. The question was, is there any of the new alignment that is in the refuge and therefore protected from trapping? I've heard people say most of the bypass is in the refuge. And then you answered the question. So way to be ahead of the curve on that one. And then, so the questions are, do you know?
Well, just to clarify, Mandy, most of the bypass is on Forest Service lands.
Thank you. Next question is, do you know if other states have implemented any type of prohibitions around such structures? Perhaps other states have adopted regulations that we might want to point to.
Yeah, most have, and truthfully, I personally, from where I'm sitting, I think the Board of Game is actually the wrong process. It's just that we don't have an alternative here. Really, in my opinion, what should have happened is the commissioner of ADF&G and the commissioner of DOT should have hashed this out, and it should have been a department to department negotiation. And this should never have gotten to this level where we're having to petition the Board of Game for something that should have been like a duh from the beginning. So we're just doing it because we have no alternative here. That's the reason why we're doing this.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. Last one, it says, if the proposed overpasses are on Forest Service land, is it possible to lobby the Forest Service for trap setbacks and circumvent the Board of Game? Very similar.
I don't want to diss another agency. I wish they would, but in general, the Forest Service has always followed with the Board of Game, with the regulations put out by Board of Game. So I don't think they'll rock the boat, which is the whole reason why Alaska Wildlife Alliance is putting this in to encompass both the 3 on the Forest Service lands and the 2, even though the 2 are protected already by the refuge, just for consistency's sake, we're putting all 5 in on this proposal.
Okay. Thank you, John. We got time for one last one. With current Board of Game, is there much chance to pass any of these?
No, but the bottom line is we have to keep trying. And I think it's very important that if the public supports this, that the record shows that, because we don't have a chance of getting this fixed if there's not evidence that the public is supportive of having this change. So we have to go through this process. We have to kind of suck it up and just do it.
That's so positive.
Well, you know, you never know. It might flip if we had enough, but I mean, I'm being realistic. I think it's a uphill battle, but who knows? You know, every year we get a little bit more on the whole trail issue, and it just in this instance it makes so much sense when there's $10.5 million of taxpayers' money being invested but effectively blown because we can't protect it. That's just nutty.
Yeah. And do you think we can ask the Board of Game to ask the department to work with DOT on this at this point? So maybe they defer to the department to fix this?
That's another option for sure. For sure. That would be that's my, I mean, again, my preference is not so much that Board of Game works, but that, I mean, this is an interagency thing. It should be ADF&G talking with DOT. These are 2 state agencies. They ought to hash it out. The feds shouldn't even have to be involved, truthfully, because, you know, it's a state managed highway.
Mm-hmm. And then do you have an idea of how many trappers or trapped animals are being trapped within a quarter mile of these structures?
No idea. On the refuge side, I mean, we could probably figure it out if it, except there's no trapping. The difference on the refuge side is that you have to register as a trapper, and law enforcement generally knows where your traps are. On the Forest Service side, I think it's nobody knows.
Carol, I see your question about sharing this presentation on the AWA website. It's going to be shared on our website, our Facebook page, and YouTube channel. So with that, let's go ahead and thank you, John.
Okay.
And we're going to transition. Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt. I just got kicked off the internet, so I'm calling in. Tell me when you'd like to do the PowerPoint, and I'll just stay here.
Is this Lorraine?
Yeah, it's Lorraine. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. A phone number came up, so I couldn't see who was talking. Okay, so you need me to share for you?
Is it time for my presentation?
Actually, I was just about to introduce you. So yes, perfect
okay,
time.
Yeah, I just got. Okay, so I can play it from my end, and then when it's time to advance it, if I'll go ahead and I'll say, you know, now or something like that. Okay.
Okay. Are we seeing life is more fun? Are we seeing that slide? It's hard for me to know what you guys are seeing.
Yes, we are seeing it.
All right. So Lorraine Temple is our next speaker, and she's a member of the Cooper Landing Safe Trails Committee, which authored Trap Setback Proposals 149 through 154. She's a longtime resident of Cooper Landing and a member of multiple community groups, and we're excited to have her here today to talk about these proposals. So Lorraine, just tell me when to progress.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Mandy, for having me and letting me share. So I'll just go ahead and start. Life is more fun wandering in the winter wilderness with your friends, okay? Do you enjoy recreating with your family? Okay, so I said, okay, you know that, go ahead. All right.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy recreating with your family and pets in the Cooper Landing area during the winter? Do you have kids and grandkids that you want to share the multi-use public areas with safely for years to come? Okay. We do, and so do most of the residents of Cooper Landing, okay? More and more people are visiting the Cooper Landing area in winter for a variety of outdoor pursuits such as cross-country skiing, backcountry skiing, fat tire biking, ski joring, dog mushing, ice fishing, snow machining, cabin trips, ptarmigan hunting, and trapping, etc. And with this, Cooper Landing is becoming more of a winter destination, which is encouraging to local year-round businesses, okay? With this increase in recreation, residents are becoming more concerned and fearful about potential conflicts between trappers and non-consumptive user groups. Unfortunately, dogs have been trapped, maimed, and killed in the Cooper Landing area, and the unthinkable of a curious child getting caught is real. Okay. In 2021, the Cooper Landing Safe Trails Committee sent out a questionnaire to every Cooper Landing mailing address asking for their opinions about trapping and trapping conflicts in the area. Okay. Feedback results. Okay. 420 surveys were mailed out, okay? Out of that, 135 surveys were returned via the USPS, online, and drop boxes. The surveys were numbered to prevent duplicates, okay? Many returned surveys through the mail represented more than one member of a household, okay? With our sample size of 420, it reflects a plus or minus 7% accuracy, which means that statistically significant 83 to 90% of the people in Cooper Landing support setbacks, okay? Based on the overwhelming response from Cooper Landing residents in support of trapping regulations, the Cooper Landing Trails Committee decided to draft and submit several proposals to the Alaska Board of Game. These proposals were created to mitigate this issue and allow for all user groups to enjoy their activities harmoniously and safely, okay? The following proposals were submitted to the Alaska Board of Game requesting 100-yard setbacks for traps on highly used multi-use trails, beaches, road pullouts, campgrounds, and parts of the Summit Lake Recreation Area. In addition to trap setbacks, a proposal was submitted for the requirement of signs designating active trapping in an area, okay? The criteria that we used, how much use it got in the winter for these trap setbacks. Was it we wanted minimally disrupted to trappers. You know, we figured traveling 100 yards off trail only takes minutes. It was a compromise between survey respondents that we got a lot of responses that said people wanted 1 mile setbacks. So the compromise between that and no setbacks, we felt was this 100-yard setback. And also we created these setbacks that were in alignment with similar proposals submitted for Homer and Kachemak Bay State Park asking for the 100-yard setbacks, okay? So the numbers and areas of the concern. Number 149 is campgrounds, and I have them listed there. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the map, okay? You can see the those 4 campgrounds listed 1, 2, 3, and 4. Russian River, Cooper Creek, Quartz Creek, Crescent Creek, okay? The number 151 Summit Lake Recreation Area, Devil's Pass Ski Area, Japan Woods, Tenderfoot Campground and Ski Area, Park and Poke, and Manitoba Mountain, okay? Now, these areas, we've put the areas we're asking for the 100-yard setback in dark black. So you can see the Devil's Pass cross-country ski trails, okay? You can see Japan Woods and Tenderfoot ski areas in dark black. And another reason that this is important for this particular area is avalanche and search and rescue situations where people don't want to be having to worry about their dog, their search and rescue dog getting caught in a trap, okay? The Park and Poke area and Manitoba ski area, they're in the dark black, okay? And then our next set of proposals was number 152 trails, and they're listed there. Crescent, Lower Russian, Bean Creek, Russian Gap, Resurrection Trail, West Juneau Bench, Devil's Pass, and Stetson Creek parking area. So we're going to go to our maps, okay? There's the Crescent Creek Trail, okay? The Russian Lakes Trail. And just as a note, the whole Upper Russian Lakes Trail was requested and submitted in proposals like 9 years ago. But we decided to be as conservative as possible to the highly used area. So from the parking lot going to Russian Falls, just a Barber Cabin instead of all the way around the whole, the whole trail there. Okay. The Resurrection Pass South and Bean Creek Trail. Again, in the past, submissions were put in for the whole Resurrection Trail. We figured just this, part here is what we know in this area. A lot of our community, friends and neighbors go to these different cabins and go snow machining and take their kids up there skiing and whatnot. So instead of the whole Res Trail, just this bottom part here, okay? The Stetson Trail parking area, this is by Two Brothers Roadhouse. This area has been used every winter. A group of people take their dogs out there to practice search and rescue with them. So we're just asking for that little bit there, okay? Our proposal 153 was up for beaches around the Kenai Lake. And it'd be easier just to show you on the next slide, the map of that. You can see there's Kenai Lake and the Waikiki Beach, which is unfortunately where one dog got caught and killed about 7 years ago. And so there's other areas. Now, there's an issue with the private areas, privately owned lands on those areas. We'll talk about that later, okay? Our number 154 was for active trapping signs. Mandatory signs posted indicating active trapping at all access points along trap lines. The signs must include ADF&G or Fish and Wildlife license or permit numbers. And interestingly, a lot of the trappers I've talked to are in favor of this, okay? Commonly asked questions and concerns. Will these proposals eventually ban all trapping in Cooper Landing? No, to the contrary. Creating safe buffers can help perpetuate the existence of this historical activity by allowing user groups to coexist harmoniously. We recognize some families are teaching their children how to ethically trap, tan, and utilize furs to keep the tradition alive. These setbacks are only requesting a small area of land as trap-free so that all user groups can recreate and enjoy the area and trails without risking getting caught in a trap, okay? What about local subsistence trappers? How does this affect them? These setbacks do not affect local subsistence trappers. If you are a resident of Cooper Landing, Moose Pass, or Hope, you are still able to set traps wherever you choose. These proposals are especially useful for non-residents who may not be familiar with Cooper Landing winter land use and potential conflicts, okay? How will these setbacks be enforced? Are there enough law enforcement officers? Although enforcement may be limited, these regulations provide guidelines for public safety. Just as speed limit signs operate, we don't have enough law enforcement in Cooper Landing to monitor highway traffic, but the limits are there, they're set. Also, these regulations also provide legal recourse if an illegal trap is set, okay? If I'm required to post signs to identify my trap line, how do I know that my traps are safe from tampering, theft, or removal of product? A local trapper's response to this question was, I'd rather have that than kill somebody's dog. And the law already states that there is a fine in place for tampering with, theft, or removal of product, okay? What about the current leash law already in effect on developed Chugach National Forest land? Current leash laws for the Chugach National Forest states dogs be leashed or restrained in these areas. And restraint can be voice command or e-collar. Since campgrounds and facilities are closed in the winter, leash laws are not enforced in those areas. Recreational activities such as bird hunting, shed hunting, blood tracking, backcountry skiing, fat tire biking, snow machining, etc., as well as search and rescue activities are all much safer when the animal is working off leash and under either voice or e-collar control, okay? What about the private property along Kenai Lake beaches and Snug Harbor Road? These proposals do not affect private property. Property owners can choose how their land is utilized, okay? Reasons we have heard to support trap setbacks. Mandy, do I have time to read all these or am I running short? Oops.
We're getting pretty close to your 10 minutes. Maybe highlight a couple.
So maybe, the highlights are that there's a lot of fear about, hopefully the people can see this. There's a really unbalanced portion of recreationalists versus consumptive users. And so these regulations would kind of make it more equitable. I'm going to go to the next slide. These are more of the reasons continued. And if anybody's interested in these, I can certainly provide these reasons and the talking points if I'm contacted. So with the changing times comes changing values in recreation. And okay, next. There's our little sign, and I hunt, I fish, I trap, I play. I am an Alaskan. Okay. We love where we live, and we love sharing winter outdoor activities with visitors from all over. Cooper Landing is changing and growing, with more families moving here and more people coming for winter recreation. To evolve with these changes and encourage winter economic growth while respecting the culture and the Alaskan lifestyle of years gone by, there needs to be new guidelines and direction. We ask all of you to be part of the solution of creating safer, more compatibly used public lands without fear or conflict. Please support this effort by commenting to the Board of Game on these proposals by March 3rd. Thank you for supporting this effort, Cooper Landing Safe Trails Committee. Okay. And here we go.
All right.
Are there questions?
We have time for one question, but I'm not seeing anything in the chat right now. Oh, here we go. So the question is, how did ADF and G comment on these proposals? And so
the department came back with the department came back. One of the things that was surprising was they said some things such as like outside the campgrounds was an ambiguous parameter, and you know, it's very well mapped out where the campgrounds are, where those you know, outlines are of those campgrounds. So we're not really sure where they came up with that. They also said that they favored creating and keeping as much opportunity for harvesting or for, you know, using these lands to hunt and trap, which they said they were neutral. The department said they were neutral on all these, but that they kind of favored keeping them the opportunity available. I really believe, I feel that with so many that was their, I'll keep it at that. That was their answer. And hopefully we'll be able to prove different way that would be more truly multi-use. Right now, it's just not safe. And the Forest Service statement says to keep things safe in psychological, physical, and you know, other ways. And right now, a lot of our Cooper Landing people are very concerned to the point of, I'd say, they don't feel psychologically safe to go on a lot of our trails and areas right now in the winter with the traps out there.
Thank you, Lorraine. I'm going to point out, I'm going to move us along for time, but Lorraine, there's still another question in the chat for you. If you could reply in the chat, the question is, are there other places to lobby besides Board of Game? And then John, there's also a question for you. That would be great if you could reply in the chat. Does the refuge publish where trapping is occurring and where it's permitted? So with that, I want to transition us to Kathy.
Right. So I can't get on the chat right now because I don't have any internet. So
that's right. Okay, I will. Do you want to text it to me, and I can put it in the chat that way for you?
Okay, and tell me the question again, please.
I will text it to you. Let me get Kathy started here real quick. Okay. So I want to transition us to Kathy Sarnes. She lives in Homer, is an active skier, and she's here today to talk about Homer setback proposals, particularly proposal 147. Take it away, Kathy.
Hi guys. In also 146, there's two proposals. So if that's okay, I'll just read them. So the first one, I've got a map up, I think you can see, of Ketchimek Bay, and hang on a second, I'm learning how to do this. Can you see the map okay, everybody? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. So proposal 146 is it's asking to require a 100-yard setback of traps from the Diamond Creek Trail, the Gruink Glacier Lake Trail, and the Gruink Saddle Lake Trail within the Ketchimek Bay State Park. These trails are heavily used by the public during trapping season, accompanied by their dogs. And, you know, when a sunny day, there can be 100 100 to almost 200 people over there skating on Grink Lake. They come over on the water taxis. And if nothing has changed, dogs getting caught in traps will increase, causing unnecessary trauma to park users and dogs and huge public outcry. User conflicts are time-consuming and energy-draining for all involved. Already overtaxed and underfunded, ADF&G employees and park staff will be increasingly burdened. So that's, and then there's some other verbiage, but it's this, the gist of it, 100 yards from, and I'll share this. You can see the yellow, I highlighted the trails they're talking about across the bay. You can see them there. And then I'm going to stop share and then show you the other map of the Diamond Creek trails that are on this side of the bay that are very popular. Almost there. Okay. And then this is the white line at the upper right is the Sterling Highway. And then Homer is over to the right of this. And it's a very popular place for people. Everybody walks their dogs here, bikes and snowshoes and whatnot. And it's just, as you can see that you can see the trails. So, okay, so now I'm going to stop share and share the next one here. Here's one for the next proposal. I will read. It's item 147. And proposal 147 is establish trapping setbacks along certain snow machine and Nordic ski trails in Unit 15C. And I want to back up a minute. We've had more than 8 pet dogs have been trapped recently on popular Homer trails. One of them right within town limits. Trappers and other trail users working together created 2 proposals for 100-yard setbacks to help make Homer public trails safe for all. So I worked with a trapper who he came up with a 100-yard idea. He said he wanted to have some guidelines so that this stops happening because, as he said, he's been trapping since he was 10 years old and, you know, I don't know, for 50 years, and it's a tradition in his family, but he says times have changed. There's a lot more users out there, whatnot. So he's been working with us, plus a couple other trappers. So the 100 yards we came up with was based on their input. And so with a growing population on the lower Kenai Peninsula and an increase in non-consumptive users on multi-use trails, conflict with traditional trapping areas and incidents of pet dogs being caught in traps is becoming more common in game unit 15C. Local trappers, non-consumptive users, and the Homer AC working together propose that traps set adjacent to the public map trails and Unit 15C be at least 100 yards from the main trail. And we came up with 2 sets of trails that were, because there's a lot of trails, and they were like, not all, I had in there all trails. I tried to sneak that in, but they were like, no. So we came up with SNOMAD trails and the KNSC, Kachemak Nordic Ski Trails, that are groomed and mapped and GPSed, and they don't move anywhere year to year. So this is the first screen share I have up. The Kachemak ski trails. It's an overview. I don't know if you can see it, but there's Baycrest trails as the lower left are connected by the Marathon connector, which is about a 12-mile. It's a like a faint yellow line there, beautiful trail, and there is trapping going on there right now. But dogs are allowed on that trail, so it's kind of doesn't make sense anyway. And there's a lot of people using it with their dogs. And then the McNeil trails too are over up in the upper right. There's been 3 dogs trapped off of those ski trails this year, and those are labeled as dog-friendly trails. So anyway, in these there was some argument. Somebody said, well, they move every year. No, they don't move. These trails are set in not in stone, but they haven't moved anywhere since I've been here for almost 15, 16 years. So anyway, there's that. And then I'll show you the SNOMAD trails. Hang on. Hopefully you can see this. And here's the Snowmad trails, and basically they are the groomed by the Snowmad group or Snowmads group, and it's south of Caribou Lake. And I labeled McNeil School to give you an idea where the school is, and I also labeled where the Homer Epic event happens. And to give you an idea, this one loop is about 50K or 32 miles. And then if you go all the way out to almost to Nicolaivis and back, that adds, makes it a 100K race, which is about 64 miles. So those I highlighted just to give you an idea of that race is 150 people doing it this year. And then a lot of people out there training on a regular basis, and they often bring their dogs. And so it's just getting to be, and it is all, the Snowmad trails are all multi-use. They're not just for the snow machiners, but the snow machiners also go, I see them often out there with dogs running behind them. So it's a very popular set of trails. And so besides the yellow mark trail, if you see below, here's the Caribou Lake. If you can see my cursor, it's kind of right here. So everything kind of south of here, these red trails are also all Snowmad trails, and groomed by the Snowmads. And there's, there's an access, here. So anyway, that's the other set we were asking for. And let me just check. So yes, what we're hoping to do is push for as many comments as we can get to the Board of Game, because we've been told don't get your hopes up, which, but we've got to try, and that way we can document how many people do comment on all these proposals. But if you're from Homer and you want to be out there and not worry about your dog or your kids, I would definitely comment. And I was involved last season. I was with a couple groups. It was the Nordic Ski Club group of we have a training program, and we all went down the Watermelon Trail, and there were like 4 or 5 dogs, but they were good dogs. Everybody is near us. And 2 different dogs got trapped. And as my friend said, where her dog got trapped, she said it scared her. And she was a trapper. She used to be a trapper. And she said, it's where I would have gone to pee. It was that close to the trail where her dog got trapped. So it's like, that's what kind of instigated all this, how I got involved. And I don't represent an organized group. I've ended up being representing a group of concerned citizens in Homer, unorganized, but we have a Facebook page now called Homer Safe Trails. If you want to come check that out. And yeah, so any questions?
Sorry, I had to find my mouse again here real quick. Thank you, Kathy. I think it's really important to emphasize that, this process, you don't have to be an organized group. This Board of Game process, it's anybody can submit comments. This really is a public process. And so we would really love to reiterate, we have to get our comments in. Otherwise, there is absolutely zero chance. And the more people that submit a comment in support, the better the chance of it passing. And so I haven't seen any questions come in yet. I just will make a note that I did get a reply to Lorraine, the question that was to Lorraine. So that is in there. And I saw that John also put a reply in the chat to the question targeted at him. And then I just want to say, Lorraine, you can't read the chat. So you got a good work, Lorraine, thank you comment. And then there was also a comment that, it was mentioned in the Ketchikan meeting that they may put together a statewide subcommittee to address all these pressures. So good job in capital letters, keep up the pressure. They are feeling it, and they know they need to respond, and we all need to be part of this. And the they there was the Board of Game. So that's really, really helpful. And Kathy, in case you're not seeing it, you're getting a few thank yous and thanks. And
may I post the link that I've been sharing about how to comment?
Yes, you put that in the comments.
Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And Okay, and Lorraine would like me to put Cooper Landing Safe Trails and then her phone number. If anyone has questions, so give me just a second to get that in here for her. So, Lorraine.
So, Mandy, this is Carol.
Hi, Carol. Carol is the president of the board of Alaska Wildlife Alliance.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I just wanted to give a big kudos out to John, Kathy, and Lorraine for all your work. I was the one that was at the Ketchikan meeting when I heard them saying they're going to do a statewide, maybe. They realize there's a lot of pressure on this. This is what we want. They feel it. We need to keep that pressure up. If you can get people with real life experience testifying on some of this, Kathy, you brought forward some great examples as well as Lorraine. And then just getting people to comment, you know, even if it's a short comment, just saying we support, we support. The more pressure we can put on right now, we have momentum right now. So badger your friends if they're there, make them take that 5 minutes to submit a comment. If you can get them to do that, it will bear down on them a little bit more. We do have a lot of momentum here. And I guess the only other question I had for you, Kathy, is I wasn't sure for the trails that you were proposing, if they are crossing different jurisdictions of land, or are they all within state lands, federal lands? Just curious.
Good question. A lot of it's DNR land, but some of it does cross. I know some of the ski trails they're permitted per each year with agreements with the native, I think some of the native corporations, and then there's some private land. So that is a good question.
Yeah.
And then the Snowmad trails, I think on the map, the Snowmad trail would actually shows some of the different boundaries, but it's mostly, is it called DNR, public land? And then each organization, Snowmads, and then the ski club gets permission to each year to, for the weird spots that might not be DNR, they get permission. Because I just heard like, oh, the Snowmads is not grooming a certain part that's on what's the name of the native corporation?
5,000 road.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know.
Great,
It's sort
thank
of an answer.
So
mostly state land.
So thank you, Kathy. I just want to point out, I'm going to move us along because I've been asked to show everybody how to comment online real quick, and I want to try to respect everyone's time. But Kathy, there's a comment in the chat from Bill. If you could reply back into the chat to that, the question is, do you feel that they realize that with every injured or killed dog due to trapping or snaring, that it increases opposition to trapping, and that trapping setbacks is actually in their interest? So if you could reply to that in the chat, that would be great. I'm going to share my screen again and just try to very quickly walk through how to comment, because hopefully everyone wants to comment tonight after hearing this. And okay, if someone can confirm, you can see the screen that says 2 ways to have your voice heard.
Yes.
Okay, great. So there are actually 2 ways that you can get involved and submit comments about these proposals, and you can actually do both ways. You don't have to pick one or the other. So there's been a whole lot of information, great information that has been shared tonight. And hopefully you will take time tonight while it's still fresh in your head to go ahead and submit some comments. So the first way that you can get your voice heard in this public process is to submit written comments, and those are due March 3rd. And there's several ways that you can do that. You can do it in just a few minutes online. And there's 3 different links that will eventually get you where you need to go. You could just start at the main ADF&G website and work your way through it. And so I'm actually going to show you that in just a second. But ultimately, the actual comment is this survey123 ... So that's a hard one to remember. So I'll show you how to work it through. But also some people prefer to mail in comments. So I wanted to provide that information here. So the address for how to mail it in is there. I do want to point out, if you're going to mail in comments, they have to be received by March 3rd. They won't accept them if they're postmarked by March 3rd. So I just wanted to flag that real quick. So I'm just going to do a couple of screenshots. We're going to start out at the adfng.alaska.gov website. And so pretty much did a scroll. And so there's the left and the right as you're scrolling down the page. And so as you go to their main page, this background picture may change, but if you scroll to the bottom, you go past the highlights and you come down and you see fishing and hunting, there's a link to Board of Game embedded in that. The easiest way is just to click that link. But if for some reason it's not working, you can always use the search bar at the top and type in Board of Game. And I found the very first search result that comes up takes you to the same place. So let's pretend I'm clicking on the Board of Game. It's now going to take me to Welcome to the Alaska Board of Game. Personally, I find the way the information is put on this page is a bit jumbled. So you'll need to come down to the comments to the Board of Game section, and you're going to click on South Central Region Meeting. And so this is actually how you're going to submit comments if you're going to do it online. And before I pretend to click that link, I do want to point out, if you look in the menu bar on the left, you can see we're in the Board of Game page, but right below it is members. So if you actually click that page, that's going to take you to those Board of Game member bios that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So if you want to learn who the 7 members are that are making the decision, that's how you can find out about them. So let's pretend we're clicking South Central Region Meeting. It's now going to take us to that survey page. And so I kind of broke it up into 3 screenshots. And it's not important that you can read everything. I just want you to kind of get a gist. And there's a few things I want to highlight on here. You're going to have to submit your first name and last name. Those are required fields. And then I'm working on the image on the left. And at the bottom, you're going to have to put your city and state. So it wants to see where in the state you are. And if we're coming over into the middle panel, you're also going to have to submit your email address. But there's a qualifier that it's only if they need to contact you to understand or get clarity on your comments. Now, I've circled a couple of things in red because these are really important. I really want to make sure folks know. So the first one on the left, it says comments must specify the proposal number. So when you're submitting your comments, and there's 2 ways you can do it. You can either type them in to the box, which you can see in the middle panel. It looks like it has a character limit of maybe 3,000 characters. So I've typed in red here. This is the box where you're going to put your comments in. So you want to put in something along the lines of, I support proposal 145 because, and then give a brief reason why you support it. You don't have to put your name in that box because you've already filled out the other fields. The other thing that is very important I want to point out is this box, you have to have something written in here. So even though it does allow you to upload a Word file or a PDF of your comments, if you choose to do that, you can actually have longer comments, but you still have to type in some words in this box. And so they say to type in the words "see attached," because if you don't put anything in this box, it won't allow you to submit your comments. The other thing I wanted to point out is that if you don't have time to really kind of write out a detailed justification for every proposal, they do have this on the right panel here, this optional proposal survey. So they've gone in and listed all the proposal numbers, and then you can just click the box if you support or oppose it. And then they also have this support with an amendment option if you want to do that. And right above there is a link to the proposal book. So if you need to go and figure out what the heck is proposal 61, you can go and open up the proposal book and find it. So we suggest, if you can do this tonight, it's not a whole lot while the information is fresh in your head. It'd be really great if we can get these proposals supported. The last thing I want to say is after you enter your comments or you upload your Word document or PDF and you go through if you want to click the support or oppose, you have to scroll down to the very bottom and there's the submit button. So just make sure you do get that. We would hate to have you put in that work and miss that step. The last thing I want to say just really quickly is we have heard from the board, because they do get so many comments, that they like bullet points. So if you can keep your comments concise and polite, that would be something that they have asked for, but it's not mandatory or required. But we do urge the polite. They won't take inflammatory or foul language, so keep that in mind. The other way that you can get your voice heard is after you submit comments by March 3rd, you can also attend the meeting in person and provide oral testimony. And so they are not allowing for any remote testimony by the general public, so you cannot call in. So if you want to get your voice heard this way, you'll have to attend in person. And so the meeting, it starts March 17th, and it's at the Soldotna Sports Complex in Soldotna. And if you want to testify, testimony will actually start Friday, March 17th in the afternoon, but you have until 10 a.m. Saturday morning to sign up to testify. And so they can also have testimony on the 18th. And they will continue public testimony until everyone who has signed up has had an opportunity to be heard. The length of how long you have to testify is dependent upon the number of people that sign up to testify. So it might be limited to just a 3-minute testimony. And so we suggest that if you're going to testify, that you have your testimony written up and you read it. That way nerves won't allow you, or won't get in the way of getting your key points across. And then if they give you more time, then you can expand on some of those other points. And then once the public comment portion of the meeting has closed, the board will start deliberating proposals one by one, and those deliberations will continue through the remainder of the meeting later into the week. And they'll typically follow the order as they're listed in the proposal book. And then approximately 2 weeks before the meeting, they will have a tentative order for deliberating on the proposals posted on the meeting website as the roadmap. And so there's a few ways to stay informed. If you want to stay connected to meeting events and get alerts about when public testimony is starting or when the board starts deliberating on these particular proposals, Alaska Wildlife Alliance has set up a text alert system. And if you want to sign up for that, then you can just text the word TRAP, and it's to 833-541-0408. So don't worry if you don't remember that. This video will be put up online. We also have a blog that we've set up that has information about these TRAP setback proposals. It also has that Board of Game process video that I mentioned, and I put that in the chat. It should be the one of the very first things that are in the chat, the link to that. And then also it's worth noting that the Board of Game meeting will be live streamed. So there will be audio so you can listen to it and listen to the deliberations, even if you can't attend in person. So we're right at, I went a little over. So I just want to say thank you. And while all this information is fresh in your head, I urge you to go ahead and submit your comments online. And thank you so much for coming. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And I want to thank all of our presenters, John, Lorraine, and Kathy. And this information has been so helpful. And thanks to everybody who is going to be a voice for wildlife and who's going to submit comments on these TRAP proposals, setback proposals. So that, I hope you all have a great evening. And I do see there's some comments coming through. Since we're at time, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. And if the presenters need to leave, that's fine. But I'll leave this open for a little bit so folks can respond to the chat. Okay, thank you very much.